¿Sabían ustedes que 4.100.000 empleos directos son los que genera el sector turismo y que en este momento están en riesgo 1 millón de ellos, es decir, el 25%? Entonces, por eso los invito a viajar por México. Obviamente no ahorita, estamos en semáforo rojo, pero que en cuanto se pueda, ¿por qué no hacerlo nada más por México? Tenemos que hacer patria, tenemos que ayudarnos unos a otros, lo decía Luis Carlos, el gobierno federal está siendo omiso, entonces hay que ayudarnos, hay que sacarnos unos a otros, nada más para que me entiendan. El 80% de los hoteles son independientes, es decir, son de mexicanos. Las familias mexicanas dependen de esos hoteles, no de las grandes cadenas. Además, cuando viajamos por México, pues ayudamos a la cadena de valor. ¿O de dónde creen que sacan todos los alimentos que nos dan? Pues obvio, aquí de México. Entonces, siguiendo con el simposio, la hotelería es la nueva era. ¿Cómo va a ser la hotelería en esta nueva normalidad? Y es el tema justamente de la siguiente entrevista. En ella, Gonzalo del Peón, experimentado hotelero y director general de AM Resorts, va a entrevistar a Elie Maalouf, quien es nada más y nada menos que la CEO de IHG para la región de América. Ella está encargada, nada más imagínense, ella es líder de la gestión, del crecimiento, la rentabilidad, la región operativa más grande de la compañía y es responsable además de supervisar más de 4.300 hoteles y resorts que abarcan Estados Unidos, Canadá, México, América Central, Sur y del Caribe. Así que les cedo en estos momentos los micrófonos.
Hello, Elie. I would like to introduce Mr. Elie Maalouf, Chief Executive Officer of IHG Americas. This is a great opportunity to have you here for the CNET Symposium. It is really valuable to understand the global perspective in the worst crisis we've seen, especially for the tourism sector. So I would like to start just by asking in general, how has the COVID-19 impacted IHG and your portfolio of hotels around the world?
Thank you, Gonzalo. First of all, thank you for the invitation to join you in the forum this year. Unfortunately, we have to do it virtually. One of my greatest pleasures is to visit Mexico multiple times a year and to be with you and my colleagues and our owners in the country. And I hope I can do it soon again. I hope our next meeting is in person. And thank you also to Braulio Arzuaga, President of CNET and Chief Executive Officer of Grupo Presidente, great friend and partners of ours in Mexico. So next time, I hope that we're together in the country. So look, clearly this has been a really unprecedented time for the industry, drops in demand around the world that we have not seen before in this industry. And at IHG, we've clearly felt the same impact. At the low point, at the end of the first quarter, we probably had around 15% of our hotels around the world closed. In the Americas territory, which is pole to pole, North and South America, we were 10% closed. In Mexico, a little more, 16% closed at the worst period, at the end of the first quarter, end of March. And I think in Mexico, there's more fly-to business, so we were a little more impacted. But since then, we've been reopening more hotels. So now we're sitting here in the middle of June almost, and our hotels have been reopening gradually around the world, in the Americas, and also Mexico, we're seeing some reopening momentum. I would also say that this impact has been felt most difficult by our hotel owners, the many entrepreneurs and investors and small businesses that own our hotels for whom we manage or franchise around the world. And in Mexico, as you know, we're 100% franchised and have a variety of owners from small businesses, families that own one or two hotels, to large groups like Grupo Presidente and others who own a variety of hotels. So they have obviously been through a very difficult period of time, and we've been working hard to support them during this period. The industry in general has suffered greatly. If you've seen from the World Tourism and Trade Organization, over 100 million jobs. So there won't be, I think, an effective global recovery in the economies until there's also a global recovery in leisure travel and tourism, and obviously in the hotel industry. So we're part of the global economy at a very meaningful percentage. And the return of the travel, tourism, leisure, hotel industry is fundamental for the return of economies around the world.
Excellent. As some countries contain the virus more successfully than others, or sooner than others, could some destinations be restricted to travel or suffer more? In the case of Mexico, maybe because it's delayed in the process of the COVID-19 outbreak?
Yes, what we've seen, Gonzalo, around the world is a pattern where as the pandemic reaches its peak of infection, then after that peak, countries start entering in various phases of reopening. So initially you saw China, which was the country that was first impacted. It reached a peak in March, and then it's been reopening since. Then even some of the worst impacted countries in Europe, like Italy, started reopening recently. The United States is now reopening, and I think Mexico, hopefully after it reaches its peak, will start reopening. I know we're following the guidelines from the Federal Health Ministry and Tourism. We're following the traffic light system that you have in Mexico, red, orange, yellow, green, and we're already seeing some reopenings of hotels. Now, if you look in parts of the country, like in Mexico City, occupancy is still in the low 10% range. But over in the Yucatan Peninsula, we're now already in the 50s, and we're reopening some hotels. We're reopening the Intercontinental in Cancun, and we are seeing a little more activity in some of the leisure destinations already. Mostly people can drive to them. So I think as countries reach the peak and go past the peak of infection, then they want to reactivate their economies, and they put in different stages of reopening for essential services, non-essential services, offices, hotels, and we start to see activity resume. So we think Mexico will follow that pattern too, a little bit behind US, which has been reopening sooner, but also reached its peak of infection sooner. We also hope that that reopening occurs safely, that people follow the procedures, the medical advice of their local authorities, of the WHO, to reopen safely, because we don't want to come back to another peak. And during the crisis, we focused very much initially on the health and safety of our colleagues and our guests, bringing protective equipment to our hotel workers, masks, gloves, social distancing, making it a standard now across all of our hotels across the Americas, putting in heightened cleanliness and safety standards in hotels, because as the industry reopens, Gonzalo, we want people to be able to enjoy travel for leisure, for business, do it safely though, so that we don't end up back closing hotels and going into a different and not so good situation.
And knowing that IHG portfolio covers hotels not only all over the world, but in different market segments, what's your perspective regarding the recovery process and the transformation needed for some of the important segments like business travel, leisure travel, MICE, meetings, incentives in general?
Yeah, look, Gonzalo, I think that, and we've seen this pattern around the world also as countries have gone after the peak and started reopening. First, you'll see drive-to business come first. People are a little more concerned about flying. There aren't that many routes available. We're seeing some airlines starting to reopen some of their routes. We saw Aeromexico starting some international operations this month to Central America. But Argentina still has a ban on international travel until September. So flight operations are diminished, but restarting slowly. However, drive-to locations are accelerating a little more quickly, whether for business or for leisure. So that's the first segment that we see accelerating. Then after that, we will see some of what we call business transient. Business travel, but point to point on airplanes, mostly domestic. So we see domestic business travel by airplane begin, and that will bring some more business. Later stages will be the big groups and meetings for two reasons. One, because they require the grouping of hundreds and hundreds, sometimes thousands of people. And many jurisdictions still have limitations on those. No meetings above 50 people, no meetings above 100. certainly 1,000 and beyond. So we need to follow the regulations and see when those will be lifted. They will be lifted eventually, but those are going to take a little bit longer. The second thing is that those big meetings that occur, that are booked, we call them conventions, big groups, citywides, whatever you want to call them. Once they get canceled, sometimes they don't get rescheduled for a year, for 2 years. So there's also a structural aspect of those big events that even when they get canceled during the pandemic, and even when it's safe to travel again, structurally, they don't get rebooked for 12 to 24 months. So that's the second reason why that segment will lag. So first, domestic drive to, second, domestic fly to, and third, large groups and meetings that bring people from around the world.
And do you think that, for example, in the leisure travel or in general, the intensive health protocols and also for some hotel companies, I understand that starting up with low occupancies means that they will have to go through drastic cost reductions. Do you think that's going to really impact in the experience from most of the guests, especially frequent travelers who were used to certain level of performance and operations in the hotels?
Yes. Well, Gonzalo, I don't know about you, but spending so much time at home over the last 90 days, whether it's in lockdown or restrictions, I think we all behaved safely, but we also all realized how much we crave travel, how essential it is to us as human beings. The human being is an essentially social person, so people want to travel. Now, it's down to us as an industry to make sure that that travel occurs safely until there's a medical solution to the pandemic, which will arrive, but maybe not very soon. So look, we start from a position of strength on that in the industry, but also at IHG with a protocol called the IHG Way of Clean, which we've had since 2015 as a standard that has hospital-grade disinfectants for all areas of a hotel and a 5-step process to disinfect and eliminate all pathogens. But during this pandemic in particular, we have come out with added levels of health and safety and cleanliness for our hotels. And we did it in partnership with industrial partners like Ecolab and Diversey, but also medical and science partners like the Cleveland Clinic, which are informing us on how to keep people safe and safer in our hotels. So we've added disinfectant stations throughout the hotel, masks required for our colleagues, gloves in certain touch points and procedures with guests, screens at check-in. We've added a clean champion in every hotel, and we've underpinned it with our clean promise, which means that your room will be clean to your satisfaction, or we will make it right. Now, we're also experimenting with other features like electrostatic sprayers, UV lighting, those to see how they interact. But at this moment in time, with our IHG Way of Clean, plus the new standards that we've added, we believe you can travel and stay in hotels safely. Now, we all have to do our part. I think our guests also have to be patient with us, understand that the experience is going to be a little bit different. Restaurants maybe at half capacity, pools maybe at half capacity, the spas a bit different, some protocols in the public areas a bit different. So if we work together and stay patient with each other, I think we can get through this period of still, medical exposure, but do it safely, enjoy our leisure, enjoy our business meetings, and still travel.
So, and also, do you foresee for business travel material change in the way people travel, maybe because working from home, we all learn to have so many meetings through Zoom or other platforms, plus the natural cost expenses from many companies. Do you see an important transformation in this segment?
Look, today, to have this call with you, I had to download Blue Jeans, which is yet another platform for video conferencing. And now I'm using 4 different platforms, whether it's Zoom or Blue Jeans or WebEx, Teams, and I'm sure there are others that in the next weeks I'll be using too. So I think we've learned over the last 90 days that we can be quite productive. Working remotely, working virtually, we can get a lot done. True. I think we've also learned the limits of that. We've learned what we can't do virtually. And so what do we think? We think that certainly in the short period of time ahead of us, there will still be quite a bit of virtual work. And due to budgets, as you mentioned, and due to some flight restrictions, people will be using virtual connectivity even more. And I think some of it will stick long term too. But I don't think it's necessarily substitution. I think it's both. I think we will do more virtual meetings than just phone calls, because it's more interesting to see you and to speak with you directly than to be on the phone in a conference call speaking to a speaker box, right? Yelling into a little box in the middle of a table. I think we've learned how to have meetings virtually now, but I don't think long term it's necessarily substitution for travel. Leisure, of course, doesn't work virtually. My family does not want to take a virtual vacation. I don't know about yours. Big events and conventions and conferences don't work virtually. Close business relationships and getting transactions done and building intimate relationships with your customers don't work virtually. They can be enhanced virtually, continued virtually. So I don't think it's one or the other. I think it'll be more of both. I think it'll be more travel at some point in this industry, and I think it'll be more virtual connectivity also.
So on a side note, what new skill sets or values do you think they're going to be needed for the post-COVID-19 times?
Look, just starting with during the COVID-19 times, because we're still in that period of time where there are still infections. We still don't have a medical solution, but it will pass. But during this period, clearly, the cleanliness and safety standards that we just talked about, and a high level of compliance with those, and an understanding from our travelers that they have a part to play too, to respect the distancing, to respect the fact that our colleagues may be wearing masks and not look so presentable or typical to them. That understanding on both sides will be a behavior change we'll have to do to travel safely together. Post that, Gonzalo, I think that in 2 years, we'll be living and traveling similarly to how we have been. We're still going to want to go into restaurants and spend time together, congregate in our lobbies for coffee and drinks, sit at the pool with our friends and our colleagues, go to the gym. We're still going to want to be together because, as I said, I think people are social creatures fundamentally. This is an interruption. This is an interruption from what we love to do and what people want to do. It's a very painful one. It's cost tens of millions of jobs around the world, hundreds of thousands of lives, disrupted economies around the world, closed the borders across countries in ways that are unprecedented. But we will surpass this with the courage and the strength of all the people in our respective countries. We will get past this, and we'll be back to traveling and to congregating the way we did before. I don't think there's going to be a permanent change. There is, however, an unfortunate temporary change.
I agree. And regarding the values, what priority has sustainability within IHG before and after COVID-19? Do you foresee any important changes in the priority that sustainability means for the company?
Yeah, look, thank you for that, Gonzalo. We've taken a strong position on sustainability before this pandemic, committing to science-based carbon reduction targets, committing to waste reduction in our hotels, including plastic reduction, committing to energy reduction in our hotels, standards that we've applied across our hotels around the world with specific measurements, holding ourselves and executive committee accountable to those results. It is clearly difficult right now during the pandemic because on the one hand, yes, carbon reduction has occurred much more rapidly than we would have anticipated, but not in the way we wanted it to happen because nobody's moving around a whole lot. At the same time, there's probably a little more single-use product disposal because people are concerned about sanitation and not sharing a lot of products. We have to be respectful of that with our guests and with our colleagues. PPE is not multiple use equipment, of course, but health and safety is a priority right now. We do think we will surpass that. And it is an opportunity to look throughout our hotels And as we've been decluttering our rooms for the safety and health of our guests by removing pens and pads and extra pillows and extra bed throws and things that their guests don't want to touch ever again. Is there an opportunity when we come back to look at those items and say, well, how many of these items do we need to bring back? And maybe we can make an impact on sustainability by reducing some of the clutter in our lives and in our hotels that has been added over the years, but is frankly creating a little bit of waste. So I think in the short term, we're having to dispose of many materials, especially PPE, because we're trying to keep our guests and colleagues safe. In the long term, there's an opportunity to see what unnecessary items are in hotels that are an opportunity to increase sustainability.
Elie, one more question. I've seen some interesting financial models or projections regarding the recovery from important consultant companies, and trying to model the projections based on previous crises. Many think that for the hospitality industry, this process, the recovery to be, let's say, at the same RevPAR level as we had prior COVID-19 may take as much as 3 to 4 years. From IHG perspective, do you see something similar, or you think there could be something faster after a vaccine comes out in the market? What's your perspective regarding that question?
Yes. We're known for not giving projections and for not giving guidance. We've seen a lot of the expert projections. Some range from 18 months all the way up to 3 years. So there's a range. Clearly, as you suggested, the medical trajectory will have something to do with it. We did not have a business problem. We had a medical problem that created a business problem. So creating the medical solution, which I'm hopeful across many of the scientific leaders around the world who are working to find that solution, hopefully that happens sooner. If that happens sooner, we could be on the earlier stage of those projections. If not, it could be at the later stage. One thing I'm confident about is we will recover, that the industry is harmed, is injured, but is not crippled, that we will come back. And whether it's 18 months or 2 years or 3 years, we will be back to 2019 levels, and we will make even higher highs at some point, because the population of the world keeps growing, the middle class keeps growing, the desire to travel is irresistible, and the desire to meet and to eat and to drink and to socialize is irresistible. And as long as we continue to do that properly for our travelers, as long as we show them that it can be done safely, as long as we create experiences that people continue to crave, I think what they've experienced these last 90 days has been harsh. The illness, the deaths, the loss of jobs, the insecurity, the anxiety has really left a mark on populations around the world. At the same time, we've also experienced the desire to escape, the desire to get back to travel, the desire to take a vacation. And we see it in some of our hotels in Mexico, in the US, our vacation locations, our resort locations, on some weekends recently have been almost full to full, as people have found the ability to travel as the restrictions have lifted. We also see that confidence in our owners, who have continued to sign new agreements. This week, we will open our first Avid hotel in Mexico, in Fresnillo. I'm very excited about that. I wish I could be there in person. We are proceeding with a Staybridge suite managed by Grupo Presidente in Guadalajara. We have 2 Kimpton hotels under construction in Polanco and Mexico City. And we continue, to grow our business in Mexico, even in these difficult times. So I think there's desire in travelers, business and leisure to travel. There is trust in our owners to continue, albeit both at a reduced level. So whether it's 18 months, 2 years, or 3 years, this industry will return to its previous highs and make new highs.
Thank you very much, Elie. I really appreciate that you're sharing all these interesting insights and inspiring the leaders in the industry. Do you have any other message you would like to send to the leaders of the tourism industry in Mexico?
Well, first, thank you again for letting me join you. I know it's been a very difficult time for the world, especially for Mexico. I still know that the pandemic and the disease is running its course. You may not be at the peak yet. So there's a lot of suffering, and there's a lot of pain, and there's a lot of anxiety. I believe, and we should have the faith, that this moment will pass, that Mexico's will reach the peak. It will defeat this disease. It will return to its path of progress, of success, of growth. We have been part of that for 50 years now. This year, we're 50 years in Mexico. We are ready for the next 50 years, and I look forward to being with you all in person next time, not just virtually. Thank you, Gonzalo, and thank you, everybody at CNET.